Hi guys, so today we are on 5.2, rates and unit rates. Make sure that you title your notes for the day and you're taking notes throughout this video. Remember that these I can statements, you don't need to write them down, but they're telling you what you're going to be able to do. First, you need to be able to find a unit rate and then use unit rates. But before we start finding unit rates, we need to know what that means. So here's some key vocab that you learned in 6th grade, but we're going to review now. So you should be writing this key vocabulary down. A ratio is what you learned yesterday, and that, remember, is when you're comparing two quantities, okay? And you use division to find that ratio value. So again, if I had the ratio of 3 to 4, I would do 3 divided by 4 to get a ratio value of 0.75. So again, this is what we did in lesson 5.1. Today we're going to talk about rates. Rates are using the ratios, but now we have different units. So we're talking about miles and hours, or cost and pound. So it's really some real world examples. And unit rate is a rate with a denominator of 1. So an example of a rate here is I drove, 140 miles in 2 hours. That's a rate. A unit rate would be 70 miles per 1 hour. So again, a unit rate has a denominator of 1. How much for 1? How far for 1? How many for 1? If you need more time to write this down, pause the video. All right, so here are our steps to writing a unit rate. First, take the information and write it as a ratio, just like you did yesterday. Then you're going to simplify that ratio so the denominator has a 1. And really important here, we're going to label our units. Again, we should be writing these steps down. So in my example, I have 8 hot dogs for $12. I want the unit rate of the hot dog, so how much it is for 1 hot dog. So I write my ratio. I have money and hot dogs. And then I want to figure out how much for 1 hot dog. So to get from 8 to 1, I divided by 8. But if I did that on the bottom, I have to do that on the top as well to get $1.50 per 1 hot dog. So again, the unit rate, you're trying to figure out how much for 1, how far for 1, how many for 1. If you need more time, you can pause the video. All right, so here's a you try here. We have 262 miles in 5 hours. I want to know my answer for 1 hour. Go ahead and try the video, or try the you try, pause it, and when you're ready to check your answer, we can press play. And here's your correct answer. All right, so 262 miles in 5 hours. To simplify that down, I'm going to divide by 5 to figure out I was traveling 52.4 miles per hour. And so that answer there, 52.4 miles per hour, would be my unit rate. Making sure that you are showing your work. Again, if you just have your answer, you're not going to get full credit. I need to see the first rate, how did you simplify it, and your answer to get that credit. All right, so now go ahead and try this one. Press play when you're ready to check your answer. And here's the correct answer. All right, so my first rate was $3.68 for 8 cans. I simplified by dividing by 8 to get down to how much for 1 can. And I have 46 cents per can. Making sure you are labeling your answers. Okay, you really want to make sure you're labeling those answers. All right, whatever table number you're at is the number I want you to try. If this seems like it might be easy for you, make sure you try that challenge at the bottom. Press play when you're ready to check your answers. And here are the correct answers. As you can see in all of these, we have labels. Okay, so how much for 1 can, how much for 1 ounce, how far in 1 second. All of our denominators you can see here are 1. That is the definition of a unit rate. All right, so these ratio tables, we found from the feedback that your substitute gave me was that these are still a little bit tricky, so we're going to go over these together. All right, so the big thing you need to use and look for in the ratio table is the relationship between the top row and the bottom row. So the relationship between 2 and 1 here. So what you do is you do 2 divided by 1, which in this case is going to give you 2. So what that means, and this is really important here, to get from the top row to the bottom row, we're dividing by 2. But if we needed to go the other way and get from the bottom to the top, we times by 2. So the relationship between the two values is always a 2. We're either dividing by 2 or timesing by 2. So for 4 servings, I'm going to do 4, since I'm going from the top row to the bottom, divided by 2. Gives me my value in the box of 2. Now, for the number 5 grams of protein, since I'm going from the bottom to the top, now I times by 2, giving me a value of 10. Same thing with our 8 here. We're going from the bottom to the top, so we times by 2. 8 times 2 gives me that value of 16. So this whole lesson here, guys, this is from 5.1, which you guys did on Wednesday and Thursday in class. So I want you to try this other one on the right here and press play when you're ready to check your answers. Remember, how am I getting from the top to the bottom row? That is what's going to help me here. And here's your correct answer. All right, so there's the correct answers. The biggest number you were looking for is 5 1/3. You could have even left it as 16/3 if that was easier for you. And again, by dividing by 5/3 or timesing by 5/3, you get the values in the box. We'll continue to practice these next week, so if you're still struggling with them, that's okay. There's also extra practice located in Google Classroom. So now let's look at some rate problems here, some story problems. So you run 3 miles in 24 minutes. What is the average rate of speed in miles per minute? So you are trying to get down to 1 minute. Go ahead and try this and press play when you're ready to check your answer. All right, so we have 3 miles in 24 minutes, and we want to get down to 1 minute. So what we're going to do there is we're going to divide by 24 to get to 1 minute. But whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top. So we're going to divide 3 by 24 as well. We're going to get the decimal of 0.125 miles. And that's our answer. All right, so let's look at another one here. You can sand 4/9 square yards of wood in half an hour. How many square yards can you sand in 3.5 hours? So there's a couple different ways you could solve this one. We know that we have 4/9 in half an hour. So I'm going to put my wood on the top, and my hours on the bottom. Okay. Remember that our goal here is to get to 3.2 hours. One thing that could help is finding the unit rate. So how much for 1 hour? Well, I can see here that to get from half an hour to 1 hour, I'm going to times by 2. So I'm going to do that with my square yard of wood as well, which is going to give me 8/9. Then to get from 1 hour to 3.2 hours, I times by 3.2. I'm going to do that with my 8/9 as well. You're going to want to type that into your calculator. So if I typed in my calculations correctly, you should end up with 2 2/3. So your final answer would be 2 2/3 square yards in 3.2 hours. All right, let's go ahead and look at this one. A person jogs half a mile in 1/10 hours. What is a person's speed in miles per hour? So we have 1/2 mile in 1/10 hours, and we want to get to a miles per 1 hour. Go ahead and try this in your notebook and press play when you're ready to check your answers. Well, we can see that to get from 1/10 of an hour to 1 hour, we're going to times by 10. So to get from 1/2, I also need to times by 10, which is going to give me an answer of 5 miles in 1 hour. So sometimes the fractions can be a little bit difficult, so we really want to make sure that we're trying to figure out how to get from one number to the next. All right, we've got one more question for today. You kayak up a river at a rate of 48 feet for every 30 seconds. You kayak 423 feet every 3 minutes on the way back down. How much farther do you kayak in 5 minutes on the way down the river than in 5 minutes on the way back up? So really we have two different questions here. We have down the river and we have up the river. So again, you kayak up a river at 48 feet for every 30 seconds. We kayak down at 423 feet for every 3 minutes. Our main goal for both questions is to figure out 5 minutes. But we might not be able to get right to 5 minutes. So we have to use those unit rates. So what I want to do is I want to figure out how much for 1 minute first. And then I can grow. So to get from 3 to 1, I'm going to divide by 3. That means I got to do it on the top as well. 423 divided by 3 is going to give us 141 feet per minute. Then I need to grow this up to 5 minutes by timesing by 5. So I've got to times that one by 5 as well. 141 minutes times 141 feet times 5 gives us 705 feet per 5 minutes on the way down. Now what I want you to do is I want you to try the up and press play when you're ready to check your answers. And here's your correct answers. So by growing our 30 seconds to 1 minute, and then by growing our 1 minute to 5 minutes, we can see here that to go up the river, I'm traveling 480 feet. To go down the river, I'm traveling 705 feet in 5 minutes. We still have not answered the question though, and this is where a lot of people would stop. It says how much farther. So I take my 705 and I subtract my 480. And I get the value of 225 feet. So when I go down, I travel 225 feet farther in 5 minutes. Making sure you're answering the whole question here. There is one like this on your homework on Monday. All right, have a wonderful day.